Hello everyone, Kent Bresler here. I want to welcome you to Kent's Kidney Stories. During our time together over these podcasts, I'd like to discuss kidney disease. I'd like to tell you about my journey as a transplant patient, but also talk about dialysis, kidney donation, and just about anything else that might be of interest. Kent's Kidney Stories, a podcast endorsed and sponsored by kidneysolutions.org.
Hello, everybody. This is Kent Bresler coming to you from beautiful Kerrville, Texas. Let's do some podcasting. Let's start with prayer. Lord, we pray for the ability to understand and emphasize and empathize with others' feelings and experiences. Fill our hearts with compassion so that we may offer a listening ear and a caring heart to those who are in need. Help us be a source of support and comfort for those going through difficult times. And thank you for instilling in us the desire to be a compassionate presence in the lives of others. We ask in this holy prayer in your name that you watch over those on the waiting list. And we ask also that you give them the strength and the fortitude to continue their journeys. No looking back, just putting all of our faith in you. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. So, folks, it's Easter week. It's a time for deep prayer and supplication. So many of us in this kidney space have much to be grateful for. And trust me, that's not lost on me. Given all of our experiences, both the good and the bad and the ugly, we should never lose sight of the worthiness and wonderfulness of God's love and perfect protection. Fear not, but be sure to pray constantly, thanking Him for sending our Divine Father to suffer and die for our very sins. Also want to remind you of our support group that meets every Monday nights at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Daylight Time. We've been averaging somewhere between 35 and 45 people, and the list grows on, and we enjoy that. We may have to do something about it. We're not worried about it at this point. Secondly, I wanted to remind you also that these podcasts I do for free, and if you're interested in being casted, please contact me through kidneysolutions.org. All the things and all the work that we do at Kidney Solutions, as you well know, is free. There are no fees. You will pay nothing for the assistance we give you and the mentoring, right? We assist you with donor searches for free. We assist you with being with you when you have your transplant, either virtual or in person. But most of all, we're a mentoring group that follows you post-op transplant, okay? So that you might be not so concerned with getting a hold of people in an emergency. Now, we were not going to give you any medical advice, but we surely can come up with answers to any of your questions. So keep us in your prayers and keep us in your thoughts. Today, this will be the second time I've chosen to deviate from our regular scripts of talking with kidney patients. I had the great privilege to podcast with Kimberly Jacques, a heart-lung transplant patient, and now I'm going to do an interview with Steven Gambrel from the Dallas, Texas area, who went a heart and double lung transplant roughly 20 years. I believe it's over 20 years ago. So without any more messing around, let's get started. Steven, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's good to have you. I've spent some time reading over you sent me an email back on, oh, I can't even remember when it was, somewhere back September-ish or so, September-ish.
Yes, sir.
And, and in it, you had listened to one of the podcasts with Kimberly Jacques, and I was fascinated that you had some of the same information and thoughts, and so we're going to talk about talk about heart and double lung transplant. It has always intrigued me because being a kidney transplant recipient, I know the trials and tribulations, but I think it's totally different, this whole concept. And I've had friends who've had a heart transplant, but not a heart and a double lung transplant at the same time. You're unique. There are not many of you in the country. So give me a little kind of whitewash or background on how this all came about.
I was born in 1971 with the heart defect. I believe it was TGA, which is transposition of the great arteries,
Yes.
dextrocardia. So everything in me is on the wrong side or up and down instead of sideways, just all mixed up. And when I was about 17, I was having atrial fibrillation. So the heart would race or skip, and then it would race. And I went to Dallas Children's the first time, and they were like, eventually you're going to need a heart transplant. And when that moment came, they said that because of the way the blood went from the heart to the lungs, it would have to be heart and lungs.
Heart and lungs. Yeah. Okay. So did you put an age on that when you were told that? How old were you at that time?
23.
23. Okay. But you battled this early on, right?
Yeah.
Early on. So when did you find out about it? When did your folks take you in, or when did they diagnose you?
Well, my mom knew right away because my fingertips were blue, and she was the first one to notice something was wrong with me. And then so they knew kind of right away. The doctors just said take him home because he's going to die. And
Oh, great.
yeah,
Take
yeah,
him home because he's going to die.
yeah,
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
yeah,
We,
yeah. And here I am.
yeah, here you are, and I'm looking straight at you and talking to you, and then the doctor's gone, probably.
Uh, I grew up with a lot of pneumonia. I was always skinny. My development was delayed just because I would get sick and not follow the other kids. And yeah, that was kind of growing up. I was fortunate, I think, to go so long without having
Yeah,
complications whatsoever, other than being sick a lot.
your activity levels were probably minimal at that because were probably short of breath, and you just had no endurance, I would think, because of
Yeah,
no oxygen in your system.
I I think I was okay. I mean, I was happy to get out of PE in middle
Yeah,
school, but I mean, I could ride my bike, with the other kids. I would just be wait up for me a little bit eventually. But yeah, I mean, I got to do all the things normal kids did, and I, hung around with them and whatever.
do
So
you ever see or hear from them?
no, I mean, I moved around a lot. Uh,
Ah, okay.
my cousin came to live with us when I started high school, and that was great. And I have an older brother, so yeah,
Yeah, see, there's it's just a different story. My family was very involved in my disease process, and it sounds like you are. Can you imagine someone not having that family involvement? How difficult it would be?
I couldn't have done. I wouldn't be here without my family. Just period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, how old are you right now?
52.
52. So we started around 22, 21, 22. But before that, you had the transplant when you were at 22. Am I right?
No, no, I might have the dates wrong. It was 95, so it's been 29 years.
29. Yeah, that's what. Okay. Yeah, that's right. 29, not 22. I never was good at math. Matter of fact, my mom got me through school. Thank God. Um, let me let me point out the fact that there's no transplants that are ever done unless you go on some type of immunosuppressive drug, period. I mean, given that, but the treatments can be a little bit different. Yours was surgical treatment. Were you ever on continuous oxygen?
No, I mean, prior to transplant, I was getting pretty bad. I would get up, just be able to do a little bit of things and then lay back down. But I was still going to college part time and
Okay.
hanging in there. So I mean, but my doctors, when they got the call, they thought, well, this is the best chance I've got. And so it was the last night of a spring break that I got my call.
So let me put this in perspective. The call you're talking about is that you got a deceased donor
Yeah.
and you got both of that person's lung, both of their lungs and a heart, and they
Yeah.
put those all in at one time,
Yeah.
right?
And it works well because they're already a set. They know each other. So yeah,
Perfect deal. Like then, yeah. So how long did the surgery take?
I think like 10 and a half hours.
10 and a half. And you probably had a couple teams working. It wasn't just one team. There were probably two teams. Doesn't make any difference. It got done and it got done successfully.
Well, I got to say, I flew up from Fort Worth to St. Louis, and I was down
Oh, okay.
in St. Louis Children's because they weren't doing heart lungs here in the South at that point. And my surgeon did three, like a heart transplant, my transplant, and another heart transplant, 3 nights in a row. Just bang, bang, bang. So him and the other guy are just incredible people.
Really? Is he still around?
I don't know. I know one of the secondary surgeon works here in Fort Worth now, but
Okay. Have you spoke of Dr. Mallory?
yeah, he was my pulmonologist at St. Louis Children's. And the craziest thing for me is I was a cardiac transplant my whole life. And then I had this doctor, heart doctor there in St. Louis, and he saw me, he decided I needed the transplant. And then right away post transplant, he stepped into my room. He said, "You don't need me anymore. It's the lungs that go bad." And suddenly I was a pulmonary patient. And it just kind of rocked my world to have that kind of flip in my life.
Well, too, the thing that you mentioned was the fact that your heart itself never really developed to adult size.
Yeah.
So that's why you kind of lingered in a cardio in the children's area
Yeah.
until you were, almost
Yeah. 27, 28. I
20.
was,
Yeah, yeah. Well, those kind of things happen, and I I read also that when you had the surgery itself, when they had finished the surgery, the doctor was, said to you something to the effect that did not realize how extensive your lung disease was and how difficult it was going to be.
well, it was due to I'd had so many pneumonias that my lungs were just scarred up in there. So they had a lot of, I guess, cutting to do to get my lungs out of the way.
Yeah, those adhesions, if you will, those things always adhere to the closest thing possible, and that's probably ribs and the side of your lungs, and so it makes it really difficult. But that's surprising. Nowadays, all the technology is there to say, no, we're not doing this,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, my pulmonary doctor told me my most recent visit though that like they're not doing heart lung transplants as much anymore because they're able to fix the problems like in utero or right after birth, which is incredible.
Yeah, we had talked about that. They go in utero and fix it, then they don't have to transplant. They do a good job of that. They also do that with the heart in
Yeah,
some cases also. So, there aren't many. I don't remember. I can't remember the figure. I looked how many 100 double lung heart transplants in the country a year on average, about 100.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, that's not very many. That's not very many transplants.
That number is probably going down.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, because of that. Yeah. And that
It's
was,
incredibly wonderful.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's
Say that again.
incredibly wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because what you went through and what you go through early on, but praise God you're here, right? I mean, think about that. I mean,
Yeah.
who would have thunk you'd be 29 years out and be, healthy? I mean,
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
Most people don't get that fortune.
Yeah.
So,
I know I'm fortunate. I
oh,
just
you're
know it.
blessed. You're
Yeah.
blessed, and that's okay. You're chosen, and that's the way it is. You take it and you work with it. You do
Yeah.
what you need to do to make it better. So I had a friend that I had breakfast with this morning. He said, "Don't forget to ask him about how his kidney function is." So I can't I
Yeah.
can't go without asking you that.
It's midline. Um, I was told, years ago that the kidneys go bad due to the medicine we take,
Hmm.
and I stayed lucky. They're just hanging in there.
Okay,
So
so that you have normal kidney function, right?
it's not normal, but it's not terrible either. It's somewhere in the middle.
Okay, so
I mean, it works.
we'll qualify. Yeah, you're peeing, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, that is true. And people who have had these, experiences with transplant know that the immunosuppressive drugs, uh, they do a number on your kidneys,
Yeah, and
regardless.
I have a great nephrologist here in Fort Worth, Baylor, who is, I see about once a year.
Uh-huh.
He's kind of keep an eye on me, and he's a great guy. So
Okay, so one of the things I stress to people who uh, are on immunosuppressives is to make sure that you find out every time you're there what your numbers are. You probably should go back and think about where they are. And I'll help you with that. I'll
yeah, I
help
mean,
you with that,
it's
Stephen.
on my phone right now, but my phone's turned off.
No, no, no. Well, I want to go
Yeah,
over those with you because I want you to stay, you know,
yeah,
there are some things that have come into the picture in kidney disease that allow for early detection of rejection and stuff like that. And then if your kidneys do happen to go south, there's always you can always have a kidney transplant. As you know, I've done a podcast on a gal who had uh, uh, a triple transplant. So and kidneys were involved. And I'm going to put you in touch with her, and she'd love to talk to you. She's a book writer too, and a
yeah.
poet. Amy.
Uh, I heard she was an English professor. I got to teach English for a short time. I graduated college and then I got my master's in English and was a teaching assistant for several years, and I absolutely loved it.
Have you listened to that podcast with
Yes.
Amy? All right. Great. And then I'm going to make a connection via email to both of you, and then you can decide who's going to do what because I'll tell you what, she's a charmer. That her and Kimberly are both,
Yeah. I'm
they're great people, just great
in
people.
touch with Kimberly. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So we made mention at one point in time that this whole process, you think of 20, let's just call it 29 years. You've had special organs. You've had somebody else's organs. What do you owe that to? Longevity, in transplants is not great. You've well gone past that. You made mention of having a double transplant.
Yeah, I just learned the other day that people are better off with two organs than one. For whatever reason, the doctor told me that the heart protects the lungs, and I guess they work better. I don't know. So it just is.
Yeah, well, they do also the idea that you just have a heart transplant and it's not if your lungs are a little bit compromised to begin with, you have that, then you got to contend with the lung issues. So having both of them, if it gets to that point, but now, like you said, they're just not doing that many because of the in utero in procedures that they do to repair before they even are born. Children are born with these defects. So
I
yeah,
think
it's great.
more now, my life would be probably completely different, but I'm happy where I'm at. So
Well, I'm telling you what, you're sitting up and taking nourishment, right? That's what we really like to do, right? Tell me a little bit about your family.
I live with my mom and my stepdad who have helped take care of me forever and a day. And I have an older brother. He's got family. And I have a 27-year-old daughter who is the reason I kept going through a lot of other health adversity I had. As she grew up, she was one of the reasons I'm going to go and get through whatever I had to get through.
Yeah, stay with it. Yeah. So you had the regular normal course of events during your life so far. What kind of comorbidities or things have you had?
Yeah, it's crazy. The heart and lungs have been great, but I ended up having a um, aortic, oh my God, uh,
Aneurysm?
aortic aneurysm from the original heart. No one here in the South would touch me. I was sent to University of Pennsylvania for them to take care of me. Uh, I just narrowly avoided a major surgery when a stent was developed for my sort of size, and that was done. And then not too long ago, I developed diverticulitis, and I had a literal hole in my colon that nearly required major surgery, but I was able to just hang on until they could do it without it being an emergency.
Yeah.
So
Got healed up, got taken care of before you had to have surgery. That's good because that's a septic burner right there.
yeah,
You, that thing perforates and goes through, and then you get septic and you don't do well. That's for sure.
they
That's a
ended up
given.
having surgery, but it's that that emergency of it
Yeah. Yeah. You're able to overcome that. See, that's a lot of times people think, well, you get these transplants and then you're whoopee, everything's cool. It's not. I mean, you still have to go through life events. The younger you have them, you're not going to forego or evade having issues that usually come up with a normal person's life, diverticulitis or heart issues. You could still have I mean, it goes on and on. For instance, I had uh, triple aortic aneurysm that had to be repaired, and I've had a heart stent. So in 70 years, I think that's pretty good to get by with that.
Yeah,
74, actually.
yeah,
I don't want to belabor the point, but longevity with us being transplant patients, everybody dreams of it, but not everybody succeeds in obtaining that. So it's
yeah,
a joy to get what you can out of the transplant and realize that what you have in the transplant is somebody else's. It's not yours. So it's essential that you take care of it. I mean,
yeah,
you're required to take care of it. You're obligated to take care of it because it's not yours.
yeah. I went through a lot at a children's hospital, and unfortunately, there were kids growing up who didn't do what they needed to do to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
But that's just teenagers, and
Well, there's a whole lot that goes into it. A lot of this time that you go through is because you are young, and that's when it occurs. That's when you don't have the opportunity to get into your 25, 30 years old or 40. That's not afforded to you.
yeah,
So consequently, your development, like you said, not only is it stunted, but mentally too, you got to deal with that. Everybody else is, hanging 10 and you're sitting back watching.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot. The prednisone that you're
Oh
on
yeah.
with
Yeah.
you for sure, and yeah, it's a lot post transplant right away. There's a lot.
Yeah, a whole lot. Okay, so let's do that. Let's swing back into these drugs that you have to take. Okay. Um, for instance, in a typical kidney transplant, now, um, there's two immunosuppressive drugs plus prednisone most of the time, plus antivirals, things of that nature. What kind of medication course were you on from transplant?
Well, when I heard you and Kimberly talking, I had to laugh because the night of my transplant, just before going in, they squirted this nasty stuff in my mouth. And I went, that's the stuff I have to take the rest of my life. And they said, yeah. And so that was the knee oral, the original cyclosporin. And it has worked for me for 29 years. So every morning and every night, I still squirt that stuff into my mouth and then quickly follow it with a glass of milk.
Oh, okay.
So
I
it's bad. It
It
tastes bad.
is. It's nasty and it smells bad too. A lot of people don't realize it.
Yeah, it's like put in olive oil and
Yeah,
just
it smells like a skunk.
yeah.
When you
Well,
take it out of the blister pack, you're
oh, I'm still on the liquid.
yeah, the liquid didn't have as
Hell,
much, but when they converted and were able to do it, orally,
yeah.
with capsules, and they call it, a gel type substance, comes in a really small pill. But that Santamune, I've been on it for 37 years. I
I've
mean,
been on that neural, the liquid
yeah,
for the 29 years.
yeah,
So
and that's what I started on, was that, until they developed this. I'm kind of amazed that they hadn't. But again, it's done. Once you're doing good, once you're stable, they aren't changing things. Come
yeah.
hell, they'd rather fire you than change anything. I'd get rid of you. You know what I mean?
So I have the neural, the prednisone steroids,
How much?
7.5.
7.5. Okay, Kidney World's 5 points.
Yeah.
5 milligrams.
So that's where I'm at on that. Then there's mycophenolate acid,
Mycophenolate. So yeah, okay. Yep.
and then the antivirals, Monday, Wednesday,
Well,
Friday.
that's because of your lungs.
Yeah.
That's because of your lungs. Yeah, absolutely. So they fight that virus. So you've been on antivirals for a long time. They start you out on those right away after
No,
transplant?
it wasn't for a very long time that they did that. And then when I started seeing the doctors here in Dallas, I guess they started me on that.
Okay. Had you had, since your transplants occurred now, we'll talk about that completely. Have you had any issues with pneumonias or any type of infection, lung infections or anything?
Uh, Immediately post transplant, I had CMV and one bout of rejection. I think I've had maybe two flus uh,
Okay.
in these 29 years and so many other things, but I haven't been sick. Like, I
Didn't
don't know.
keep you down.
No, I've never had the pneumonias. I've never, some
Okay.
the flu. I've never had the flu. I've just maybe once or twice.
Did you ever get told where these organs came from? Now, I know you didn't get names, but did they tell you that?
I did. I got one letter from my donor's family. Uh, his name was Sam, and he had three young children.
Oh my. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was older than me. But as far as that, that's all I know. And then because life was so busy then, I just was never able to get in touch with them again, which
It was,
is wholly on me, and I kind of regret that a lot.
well, there's still, even in 29 years, I don't know if I would be beating myself up, because they got out of them what they wanted, and developing a relationship may not have been what they wanted to do either. It's,
I just had a daughter, and I would like his kids to know how well I'm doing.
well, you can still reach out, go back through the hospital and reach out.
May try.
Yeah, and it's okay,
Yeah.
Stephen. And seriously, and think about that. What that would just give them so much joy to know that
Yeah.
you've have a child, and that these things do work, and without them being, you know very gracious in having those organs donated. A lot of people survived and are doing well. And
Yeah,
it's not a thing to worry about. I would just go back through and tell them you would like to make more contact. Maybe then the hospital can go back and do that, and then you can communicate instead of dropping it on them by yourself.
yeah. I know it was a bad situation
Hmm.
for my donor's family, and I know it took them some time, but they were able to make that decision to donate. And so, yeah, I'm lucky.
Yeah, and I think if there's any, trust me, if there's anything in the back of your mind that causes hesitancy, you need to clear that up. You've had a good road, buddy, and you need to take a look at that. And you have to be right yourself, you
Yeah,
know. And if that's something that bugs you, let's take care of it. Be a
yeah.
good thing. I'll help you with it. We'll talk about it.
All right, sounds
All
good.
right. Okay, so right now your medication regime hasn't really changed that much. You've been pretty much how much in your oral do you take, which is essentially Sandamune or cyclosporin, however many you want. What's your dosage of it? Did you tell me that?
1.5 milliliters, I
Yep.
think what it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
1.5.
Yep.
That kind of goes up and down, but it's, right in there. So,
You know, I referenced this earlier on with you before we came on the podcast, uh, maybe a couple weeks or a couple days ago. I remember a friend, a very close friend of mine, who had a heart transplant, and he went through a lot of biopsies, heart biopsies.
yeah,
What's the regime for you?
early on, it was one, like right away, there were a couple, and it was one every 3 months. And then after a couple of years, it was one every 6 months, once a year. I don't think I've had one in 20 plus years.
Yeah,
I've not had any biopsies, I guess, because, things are good.
that's right. I mean, they don't those biopsies, and that would actually go through your groin, through the arterial system, down into your heart, and take a sample of piece of tissue from your heart
In the lungs, yeah.
and the lungs. Yeah, I mean, it's not a simple procedure. It's not very comfortable, and I can tell you what, he was doing it. I want to say he was doing it weekly for a while.
Yeah, I think, like, I had to live in St. Louis about 3 months post transplant,
Okay.
and so I don't know how many I had between, post transplant and then.
Oh, you don't count them. You just do them. Get
Yeah,
them over with. You don't count them. Yeah, but there are a lot of them. I'll bet you.
I
Quite a
can tell
few.
you a really funny story, which was, I had my transplant that last night of spring break, and I had a English professor who was having an end of the year party, and I just showed up at his house, and he opened the door, saw me, and slammed the door shut. He'd seen a ghost, and then he opened the door again. It was really funny.
Yeah, you thought you were gone, and here you were.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting me to show up at the end of the year party.
Huh? Well, when you went through COVID, you've been fortunate enough not to have gotten COVID. Is that correct, or did you have a bout with COVID?
Well, let me say I was the original mask wearer. Like,
Ah,
post transplant, you wear a mask for a year, and for a long time I didn't. But then I started to again, probably uh, 8 years before COVID. So I got strange looks then. But no, my parents had COVID, but I've not had it.
well, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good. That's all right. Uh, I didn't escape it, uh, but thank goodness there was treatment, a really good treatments now that are especially for transplant patients. But still, you need to be aware of your surroundings. No matter how, it seems the farther you go out, the more chance you have of developing something pretty serious.
I think, flu season, I always wear a mask.
Yeah,
Like going to
yeah.
be in a crowded spot, you wear.
I don't do that. But I will admit to you that if I know I'm going into a really heavily populated area, like a sports bar or something like that, even just walking through, I've always got one in my pocket. All right. Or airports, and like the DC airport is very small,
Yeah.
lots of people congregating, and it's in the air. They don't have a filtration system. So yeah, I still do. And I get looks. I
Yeah.
get looks, and that's fine. I understand people are unaware of my circumstances, but so
Well,
what?
the lungs are more sensitive too. Those are
Yeah.
the first thing that
Okay.
goes
All
in.
right.
So yeah, I wear a mask.
Yeah. So in this kind of a strange question, but do you have any periods of shortness of breath, or do you walk? Is your exercise regime? Oh, you're cringing. Did I hit a
Yeah,
nerve
my
here?
exercise regime is not great. When I do walk, though, I don't really get short of breath. I mean, I have to push myself to do that. I can walk, a couple of miles if I need to. I,
Oh, there you go.
yeah,
So you've not had any of that difficulty. That's good.
yeah, yeah,
So how old are you now? Did I ask you that? Because I'm
yeah.
old and I forget.
52.
52. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, geez,
No,
man, your age.
52. I think 52. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't math either.
Somewhere in there. That's such a this whole process is amazing to me. I'm sure there are 1,000 questions that everybody who listens to this says, why in the hell didn't they ask that? When I get going and you start talking about it, I have a list of things that I've asked you. Is there anything else that you could think of that you'd like to talk about?
This just came to me. You go through a lot of physical stuff, but you go through a lot of mental stuff. And if that's hard on you to reach out to to someone in that field too.
Okay. Did you have a mentor? Did you have someone you could talk to?
Yeah, but I mean, as far as I see a psychiatrist
Yeah.
because I
Well,
need it.
yeah.
So if someone needs that, reach out because it's not just the physical stuff you go through.
So we know two people now of the same ilk having dual lung transplants and heart transplants. How many have you made contact with?
Until Dr. Mallory reached out with me, I knew no one.
No
No,
one. No one at all.
no one at all.
Okay.
Because my time in St. Louis, I was focused on other things. I didn't meet other people. I lived in Fort Worth, so I flew, right back and forth. But Dr. Mallory put me in touch with Kimberly, and through her, I've met Jamie Stroop, who's 28 or 29 years out as well. She had her transplant somewhere in the
In
Northeast.
okay. So
Yeah,
that's three or
that's three.
four. Yeah,
Yeah,
three good, solid ones.
that's all I know.
I I would really, always I know you're in the quarter century club, which is heavenly. I think that's great.
Yeah,
When you meet, if you should happen to meet someone, they're more apt to be going to be long termers like you. So just tell them about the quarter century club for sure. Let them know because that I don't know of many people that are double lung heart transplants. I really don't. And then that's what piqued my interest. So we need to keep track. And if you do, let me know.
yeah,
And putting them on a podcast, I would just love to do that because their story is going to be different, like it is with kidney patients.
yeah, for sure. We're all here, but we're all got here differently. That's for
That's
sure.
right. The journey was different.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stretch my imagination here, and I just don't want to. This has been a very good conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and at some point in time, if you want to come back, I would be more than happy to have you. If something goes on, or you know, uh, I'm here.
I appreciate that. I will definitely reach out and for sure keep in touch.
Okay. So if you think of it in your time now and in your prayers and whatnot, if you just think of Kidney Solutions and our work, I would appreciate it, and turn everybody that you possibly can towards us, because we can help and we're free.
Yeah.
We don't charge anything for any of our services. So, and we're going to maintain that as long as we possibly can for as many people as we can. But having other people, if you come across a friend who's had a heart transplant or some type, double transplant or something that, out of the norm,
Yeah.
let me know or let them know and have them call me. I would be more than happy to bring their story forward. As you know, you're number 131. And so we do a lot of these.
Yeah.
And, and, I, I just find your situation a blessing, and it's truly a blessing. And I think about the family that donated their loved ones' organs to you so that you could be where you are. And
Yeah.
I know that you're appreciative of it. I can tell on your face and the way you've carried yourself with me even before we had the podcast. And I want to thank you very much for being tough. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to pat yourself on the back, because this is not easy. Everybody thinks, well, it's not. A single lung, maybe a double lung, but a double lung and a heart without any kidney involvement. You are truly blessed, and you should be willing to just reach out to anybody you can possibly touch. And I know you would do that if you have the opportunity.
Yeah. I've met several double lungs in the past few years.
Hmm.
I'm lucky I had no underlying issues other than the heart, but they had like cystic
Yeah, they had
fibrosis,
stuff going in. Yeah,
and, yeah, and that doesn't work out so well,
yeah,
for those patients. So you don't see kidney patients, but you see people on, oxygen. So
yeah. Right. I mean,
yeah,
that's always been our nemesis. In all
yeah,
honesty, when we walk down the street, we're just walking normal in
yeah,
most people's eyes,
yeah,
unless they see that your dialysis shunt or something like that. They're not going to pick up on it.
yeah,
But I can tell you that is a very emotional and mental issue that we deal with all the time,
yeah,
especially when you're looking for a donor. You're crying for a donor. You're looking for a donor. But yours is a testament. You had deceased donors.
yeah.
And in the kidney world, deceased donors don't last near as long as a living donor,
Hmm.
because different organ, different setup.
Yeah.
So I do know people who have had kidney transplants for 27, 28 years, good friend, uh, with deceased donor, with a deceased donor. But it's tough, real tough.
Well, I know yours was a living donor, but I mean,
Yep.
you're doing great.
Yep.
You're
Absolutely.
sharing
Absolutely.
your way
Yeah.
and helping people, and that's wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you reached out to me, Stephen. I really want you to know that. And you got a friend here forever, right? All you got to do is call.
Yeah.
Not a problem. You got my number and email, but don't go backwards with this thing now. Stay right where you're at and go forwards. And we can help you. We'd love to help you in any way we can. So you want to talk, you need to talk. We've got resources. All right, everybody. Steven Gambrel from the reaches of the Dallas area in Texas. Just want to I just want to focus for just a second on this issue that we had with a pig organ being transplanted, pig kidney. I think that it's a monumental undertaking, and I'm working really hard to get one of the people that were focusing on the development of these uh, tailored kidneys from porcine or from a pig. And if I get them through eGenesis, I'm going to ask them to come on and we'll do a podcast with them. But that's just like everything else. It's a splash on the news and everything, and then it goes away. but it saved a life, and it's a point that can't be left on us. We can't lose the idea that if you don't look, you'll never find, and if you don't ask, you'll never get. So let's just keep thinking outside the box. We got a lot of people that are dying every day waiting on a kidney, 12 or so, give or take. And that's a hard way to go. All right. No way is good, but for some reason, it just seems like when you have kidney disease, it's difficult. So think and pray about the folks that are on that waiting list and those that are searching for a kidney, and pray for kidney solutions. We ask for your prayers so we can continue to do what we're doing, because we are doing good work, and that is the best thing that we can possibly do for people who need it. So until we talk again, till we podcast again, keep breathing.